much, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, Part 1 of this Budget Measures Financial Support for Newborn Children Bill obviously is exciting a lot of attention, and it should, because this is an important matter. And in Part 1, we are talking about a staged process of making a very small but an incremental improvement to paid parental leave. And for that, I have to say, we should say that is a very good thing. It is good that we are making that improvement, that over a 2-year period, on the 1st of April 2015, 2 more weeks, on the 1st of April 2016, 2 more weeks, and finally it would seem that the National Party have finally got their head around paid parental leave. So that has to be a good thing, and maybe that provides a basis to do a whole lot more. And maybe we should think about, now that National have got their head around it, whether perhaps they could do the right thing tonight, and that is support the SOP on this part, which actually does what is really needed, and that is a good, solid movement to 26 weeks paid parental leave. And this is something that, has been well considered in Select Committee, and I found it somewhat disturbing that the Minister could say there was no work done on this and none of the policy considerations and all of those things. Actually, the Select Committee heard many submissions. The Select Committee looked at matters like the cost, because one of the reasons the government is saying that they're only doing 2 weeks 1 year and 2 weeks the next is because that's what is the financially responsible thing to do. Well, actually, a lot of work was done on the costings, a lot of pretty robust measures, and actually the costs were not that significant when you offset it against some of the savings. If you add on top of that an understanding about the investment that is being made here, the investment in the people of this country and the future of this country, then this has to be a priority. Surely to goodness, paid parental leave has to be a priority. It is good for the babies. It is good that they get that best start in life. And Labor has very strong policy on giving children the best start, including 26 weeks paid parental leave. And it's because that bonding, as others have said, and that is so important in the very early development stages of that child. It is to establish breastfeeding and to try for people who are able to have a child breastfed exclusively for this first 6 months, which has long been the World Health Organisation standard. And it's for good reason. It gives children immunity. It is proven to be useful in things like ensuring that there's less chance of things like asthma, a whole bunch of other positive health outcomes. I have to say, I do think the motivation of the government, though, in making the moves that are signalled up in Part 1, these improvements to paid parental leave, but very small, is quite cynical. And it's cynical because they've tested the waters, they've heard what the public is saying, they can see there's a very strong desire for change. Families need this, as well as babies needing this. Families need this, women need this, so that they can both make ends meet and manage their household budgets, but so that women can manage their paid work and their time as a primary carer with a young baby, and so that they can have choice about spending time with their baby. So they've heard that and cynically have put up something but very, very small. And I think that it's interesting when one looks at the Minister's media release on this, and it goes to the conversation we had right at the start of this part, Mr Chair, where there was some discussion about what the Minister was covering off in the debate. And I just want, for the record, to be very clear that Part 1 is essentially saying 2 weeks in April next year, 2 weeks the year after. It's not talking about extending eligibility to anybody who's not currently eligible. But when you read, and I mean, maybe the Minister was just getting a bit excited and, putting the context there and all of that. Perhaps that's what it was about. But actually, I think it was more cynical than that, because when one looks at the media release around this, it's the same actual, what would you call it? Fudging, really. It's fudging, because it talks about extending parental leave payments to more workers, in particular to people, Mr Chair, Mr Chair, in particular to people who have recently changed jobs, seasonal and casual workers, and workers with more than one employer. Now, I have to put on record, I absolutely think that that's the way we need to go, because there are people who are currently excluded. And since Labor brought paid parental leave in 2002 and then extended it in 2004, Labor then extended again to self-employed 2007. In fact, I think the Honourable Ruth Dyson might have been the Minister at the time. Indeed, the Honourable Ruth Dyson has long had a commitment to this issue, as has the Labor Party. Well, of course, there are further extensions that are required, and the Minister's media release covers some of those people. But very cynically, if a person was to pick up this media release, they'd think this was all happening right now. Well, let's get it really clear for the record. What is happening here with this bill, Budget Measures Financial Support for Newborn Children, is 2 weeks from April next year, more paid parental leave, and 2 weeks the following April. No extension to new people. So it would be good if the Minister was able to get up and just clarify that himself, to make sure that he hasn't misled anybody or caused any confusion on this important matter. So, like my colleagues, we do see that it's important to support any improvement in this area, and to vote against something like this would be not only churlish, it would be tantamount to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, literally, because this is an improvement, but it could be so much more. We could actually be really meeting needs of New Zealand families. We could be investing in our future. And another person I think would be very good to get up and speak, given she's in the House, is the Honourable Anne Tolley. And I've got a lovely quote from her. She may not have heard it earlier, but Anne Tolley on paid parental leave said, quote, "This legislation shows how the Labor Alliance government is stuck in the radical feminist era of the 1960s and 1970s and is completely out of touch with the women of the 21st century and their diverse involvement in today's labour force. This is bad legislation. It is a travesty," end quote. Well, Minister, I'd love it if you could get up now and explain to this House why paid parental leave in 2002 was a travesty, and now this small move by National is somehow the best thing that the government has done for some time. And of course, the Honourable Judith Collins also had a similar sort of attitude. Hers is probably a little bit more timely in its kind of implication, because the Honourable Judith Collins, in 2004, when Labor extended paid parental leave at that stage, quote, said, "It is another example of this government using taxpayers' money to try to win some votes." Now, I wonder if people listening to this debate might ask themselves the question, this cynical move, very small improvement, because there is really strong demand that has developed particularly around the bill that Sue Moroney has been championing, the bill that 26 for Babies have campaigned around, because there has such a groundswell of support and we are so close to an election, it does have to be asked, is this just a cynical election manoeuvre? And particularly when you get a minister who indicates that this is going to do a great deal more than actually the bill before this House tonight is going to do. But there is an opportunity. For all of us here, there's an opportunity to make right on this. Let's actually do what the people of New Zealand would love to see us do. Let's support 26 weeks paid parental leave. It is affordable. The work was done, and it was the proposal in Sue Moroney's bill was to phase it in, but in a slightly more, well, a much stronger, in fact, a much stronger benefit to families. So July 2014, 18 weeks, July 2015, 22 weeks, July 2017, 26 weeks. Let's actually do something really significant that the families of this country will really benefit from. Let's support the SOP on this part. Let's make a real difference.
Tony Roll.
Question be now put.
I'm going to hear Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a pleasure to get a